Now here's your host, Jason Voorhees. And Aaron Savage.
Oh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, right over there, Mr. Jason Voorhees. We're very happy to be here. Before we get started, I want to give a special thanks to our number one sponsor, La Terrain Watches. Visit their website, www.laterrain.com. That's LA-TOURAINE.com. Use our promo code S&M. That's the letters S&M as in sports and metal. And you're going to save 10% off your purchase at checkout. So what's going on, Jay? How you been? Oh, I don't know what happened to Jay. It looks like we lost him. Anyway, guys, a lot going on in the sports world. I know we've got NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. I'm not much of a hockey or basketball guy. I know Jay would, if he was here, be telling you how pissed he is about his Sixers losing Embiid for the rest of the playoffs. But you know what? We'll keep it going here without him, unfortunately. I know he's probably glad not to be here right now because I'm going to rub in the Mets' big comeback win the other night against his Phillies. Mets were down 7-1 in the ninth inning. 7-1. Won the game 8-7. Wow. That's all I can say. I'm sure me and Jay would have shot the shit a little bit about that. But he's not here to take the beating from me. So we'll get started. I wanted to get into some music news this week. Judas Priest were elected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But were they? Were they really? Listen, it's awesome that another metal band is going to be represented in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I just got a message from Jay, by the way. His power went out, so we lost Jay for the time being. Anyway, so Judas Priest elected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But again, were they really? They're not really inducted. They're not really inducted. It's great. Like I said, it's great to have another metal band represented in the Rock Hall. And I know the band themselves are super pumped. Rob Halford commented, this is great. Another band in the Hall of Fame. Hallelujah. I don't know. What are they going to say? It's the politically correct thing to say. If you don't know what I mean, I'll tell you. Judas Priest hasn't been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the performance category. No. They've been inducted in the musical excellence. They will receive the Musical Excellence Award. That's what it's called. Get this. When the award was originally conceived, it was called the Sidemen Award. And what that meant was it was given to artists, musicians, songwriters, and producers whose originality and influence creating music have had a dramatic impact on music. That's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's definition of the award. What does that mean? They're talking about songwriters, producers, not necessarily the artists. The artists are the ones who get elected in the performance category, like the real official induction. The artists perform during the ceremony. So let's give an example of what I'm talking about. Judas Priest this year won the Sidemen Award, which is now called the Musical Excellence Award. Last year, it was given to Randy Rhoads posthumously. Legendary Ozzy Osbourne guitarist. Sidemen, he was in Ozzy's band. He got this recognition years later. That's great. Welcome back, Jay.
Harrowing out.
I told the audience I got your message, but I'm talking about Priest here. And as I was saying, they've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Musical Excellence category, which was the Sidemen Award. And let's look at who they were inducted with this year. That somebody else that received the Musical Excellence Award, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Now, obviously, this is a metal show, so you might not be familiar with who they are. I like all genres of music, so I respect their art, and I think they deserve the award. Who are they? They're a great R&B songwriting team. They're most known for working with Janet Jackson and producing all of her big hits. Great success since the 80s. They deserve it, the Musical Excellence Award. They're not going to be elected as performers because they're not. You wouldn't necessarily think of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. You wouldn't think of their contribution. So that's what the award was conceived of. That was what the award was meant to purvey, to give recognition to people in the music industry that might not otherwise get that recognition. So Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis this year are being inducted with the Musical Excellence Award, as are Judas Priest. The performers that are being inducted are Pat Benatar, Duran Duran, Eminem, Eurythmics, Dolly Parton, Lionel Richie, and Carly Simon. You could argue everyone's deserving. Eminem, maybe the controversial one, because everybody's like, why are rappers getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And I can't necessarily disagree with it, but the precedent's been set. Rappers have been inducted already. LL Cool J, NWA, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So the Run DMC, there's rappers in the Hall of Fame. So if they're going to be in, Eminem's in, fine. But why not Judas Priest? Why is Judas Priest being inducted in anything other than the performance category? Like a real, actual Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction with the opportunity to perform during the ceremony. My argument is this. It's almost like a consolation prize. To me, it just continues the disrespect that heavy metal receives by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, most people don't see it that way, probably because they don't think that deep into it. All I've read is, oh, it's awesome. Judas Priest have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's all you're hearing from all circles. But is anybody really thinking this through? And what is the band gonna say? I mean, I was talking about when you were gone, Rob Halford's saying, oh, this is great, hallelujah, and other metal bands in the Hall of Fame. What are they gonna say? But then again, I'm kind of disappointed because I almost would have more respect if they stood up and say, you know what, we're going to decline the invitation. We weren't inducted as performers. We're going to respectfully decline. They didn't. I can't fault them for it. I'm just saying it would have been nice. What are your thoughts on this, Jay?
I mean, I think it's a disgrace. I mean, we could talk. We could talk till we're blue in the face. Sit here and talk. We could have multiple shows on not just how bad and piss poor the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame process is, but just about every Hall of Fame, in my opinion. All sports. I mean, the Football Hall of Fame anymore is a joke. The baseball, we've talked about that. I mean, the fact that Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame, and some of these other guys that have been inducted.
We're also some of the other guys that were inducted were also, at least there were steroid whispers about them. I know that's what you were trying to get at. Yeah.
My point is that in almost all walks of Hall of Fame entities, there's some form of
bias,
irregularity. There's bias. Like the voting process for these people to get in is what is a joke. And to me, you don't have to look further to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And like I said, people can have a difference of opinion, and that's fine. That everybody's entitled to an opinion. But if a rapper is going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's no reason in hell that a band like Judas Priest shouldn't already be there. They should have been there years ago.
That's what I always say. That's what I always say.
Gods. Like Rob Halford, to me, like I said, Rob Halford in himself, whether he's a metal singer or just if you look at him as a singer, period, has one of the best, if not the best voices I've ever heard. I mean, his range is absolutely.
He was in the theater. You know that. He was in the theater before. When he was young, he was a theater performer.
I mean, he's got an operatic voice. Name are they not in the Hall of Fame? And then, like you said, now the fact that they're getting in on
it's like a consolation prize.
It makes it even more stupid. It makes it more frustrating.
Insulting is the word you're looking for. It makes it more insulting, I think, is the word you're looking for. Well, it's insulting.
But I'm pissed off as a fan of metal to know that. Yeah, it upsets me. Well, I didn't even know it. That's how bad it is because you had to tell me this. When you first told me, oh, Judas Priest, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm thinking, oh, I'm all excited. I'm thinking oh, this is great news. And then when you told me to take a deep dive into it and I started reading, I'm like, this is absolutely a sham. It's like a sham.
Yeah. It's almost like they, after the fact, said, we'll give Judas Priest this award since we didn't induct them. And they I think they won the fan vote. I'd have to double check that. The bottom line is it's almost like after the fact, they said, let's just give them this award so we can tell them, the metalheads, that we inducted a metal band, even though they're not really inducting a metal band. And here's the bigger kicker on this. Let's go back to the performance inductees, right? One of them is Dolly Parton, who I 100% would agree deserves to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just by being a great musical artist. But she herself said she doesn't consider herself rock and roll. And if you remember a couple months back, we talked about it on this show, and I said how much I appreciated her sentiment and how much I respected her, she basically told the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to remove her from consideration because she didn't feel like she was rock and roll. And she said, if I ever put out a rock and roll record in the future, I hope you'll consider me then. But at this time, I don't consider myself deserving of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She's obviously in the Country Music Hall of Fame. She's basically Mrs. Nashville. Everybody loves Dolly Parton. But she said, I don't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, meaning she didn't consider herself rock and roll. But yet here she is. And Judas Priest, not in the performance inductees. I mean, you could even make the argument against Lionel Richie. And again, it has nothing to do with him as an artist. Now, I personally, again, I think Lionel Richie should be there. But if we're going to argue against Eminem, we're going to argue against Dolly Parton, which I think Dolly should be there. It's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is how do you induct these certain artists that you could easily make the argument aren't rock and roll when Judas Priest is clearly rock and roll? How are they not inducted in the first place? And then you give him some consolation induction. Stop. We've had it. We don't care about your bullshit Hall of Fame. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke, and it's a farce. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We don't care about your joke Hall of Fame. And I'm going to say one more thing. I know I was kind of interrupting you before, but it was because I wanted to piggyback off your point. At this point, when you're inducting some of these artists, even if you're inducting them in the performance category, it's so overdue that that's an insult. Like when you're inducting bands like Kiss and think of the influence they had. I'm not a huge Kiss guy, but think of the influence Kiss had on an entire generation of kids. When you're inducting them 10, 15 years after they were eligible, it's insulting. Now, the bands that are getting inducted aren't necessarily going to say that because it's still an honor, but some have said, if I'm ever inducted, I'm not going to accept it. Iron Maiden comes to mind. Bruce Dickinson said, if Iron Maiden's ever inducted, we're not accepting it. I'm pretty sure Motley Crue said it, but we all know Motley Crue. They'll say it, but if they get inducted, they're going to show up. Just like they weren't going to tour anymore, and here they are back on tour. But, dude, it's ridiculous, and it's a fucking farce. It's an absolute farce. And I don't mean any disrespect to the guys in Judas Priest, Jay. I don't want to be taken the wrong way here. I'm glad they're excited for it. But I'm disappointed, and it's like I wish they were as disappointed. But at the same time, I don't want them to be disappointed because they deserve it. So you get my point.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie to you, Aaron, because I'm kind of at the point now where I used to look at Hall of Fames in general, not just rock and roll, but all Hall of Fames as being sacred and something that I always wanted to go to. I've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame. I've still yet to have been to the baseball. I've never been to the football, and I've never been to the rock and roll or basketball. But I always wanted to go. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm at the point now where I could really give two shits about any Hall of Fame. I don't even want to visit because I feel like all of them have gotten to the point where it's so – I don't want to say like – I'm trying to think. I always sometimes struggle with the right word, but it's almost like – it doesn't mean it. It's lost all its meaning. Hall of Fames in general. Like, I don't, why would I get excited to go to a Hall of Fame? Yeah, maybe because I'd see some artifacts and see some old stuff from baseball players and, gloves and balls and yada, yada, yada. But like knowing the way that it's become watered down and knowing the way that it's kind of,
it's become a popularity contest.
I use the word lost its luster. I use the word, as a term. It's basically how I feel. I feel like it's not a big deal.
It's not because, like you said, you might see some artifacts in this and that, but while you're there, the whole time you're going to be questioning, why is this guy in, but this guy's not? Why is this guy in, but this guy's? And it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that. It's not what it should be. And obviously music is different than sports. So sometimes I hate those comparisons because when we're talking about sports Hall of Fames, music is an art form. I hate when we look at music as like a competition. So in that sense, I almost hate the Hall of Fame, period, because why is there a Hall of Fame for art? You know what I'm saying? Like what you like, I might not like. And what I like, Joe Schmo down the street might not like. And that's fine. That's why it's art. You ever see like one of these abstract paintings and you're like, why? It looks like some guy just threw paint cans against the wall and it's worth $2 million. And you're like, what? But to somebody, that's art, It's not, but the point I'm making is if you're going to call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, then induct rock and roll bands and recognize bands that had an influence. There's got to be some kind of criteria, right? If we're talking about Judas Priest, you're talking about arguably the second heavy metal band, like after Black Sabbath. I mean, right? We're talking about a band that is like part of like the birth of heavy metal from the same place as Black Sabbath, Birmingham. And they've been around 40 plus years. Think of the influence that they've had on generations of artists since. If that's not Hall of Fame, why have a Hall of Fame? Why even call it that? Why? Eminem isn't even rock and roll, and he's only been around since the 90s. You're going to put him in, but you're going to leave Judas Priest out? That's the problem I have with it, Jay. That's the problem I have.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. It's the same reason why, and I know you just said you don't like to compare it, but in a sense, it is kind of a comparison if you look at it tit for tat, like the Baseball Hall of Fame. Because, like I said, you had guys like, I'm trying to think of the guys that are in there. Jeff Bagwell is in the Hall of Fame. He used steroids. Barry Bonds used steroids, but Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he even injected anything into his body.
100% agreed.
And how can one be in and not the other?
100% agreed.
And it's exactly what you're saying here.
And let's take it a step further. Neither one failed a drug test. It's almost like the now we all know Barry Bonds did steroids. Don't get me wrong, but he was judged in the court of public opinion, which is fine. But it doesn't mean he didn't do it. You could just tell by the way his head grew and the way his body changed. We know he did steroids. But at the end of the day, he never failed a drug test, at least not that we know of. I know there was the Balco stuff. I don't remember if he was in the Mitchell report. But to my knowledge, he never failed a drug test. What makes him different than your example, Jeff Bagwell? I don't think he ever failed a drug test, but he certainly looked like he was on steroids. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I 100% agree with you, dude. Listen, we were talking about Judas Priest, right? We're talking about their innovation, right? Arguably the second heavy metal band. We're talking about their influence on a generation of artists. And it gets us into our next subject here. M. Shadows did an interview recently. I think it was on a podcast. I forget which one. But he basically said that heavy metal has lost its innovation and that almost all of the innovative artists are represented in other genres. What are your thoughts on that comment, Jay? M. Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold said this.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I think he's kind of on to something here, at least in my opinion, because I don't see near as many bands making an impact in our world today as I did. Obviously the 80s was like every generation has its era of music. I mean, you had obviously, 80s where, glam became big and you had, people use the term hair metal, but it was glam metal was the big thing. And then
glam
obviously,
and thrash were the two
exactly. Then you had thrash kind of coinciding at the same time or, soon thereafter. Obviously grunge then came in and then you had, new metalcore and, industrial metal, like all these different genres kind of grew out of other genres. But at this point in time, I don't see near as many bands making impactful statements on an actual genre or a new genre. Now, with that being said, there might be other reasons for that. It could be the fact that music is so much more available now today. Like you can stream it and there's just so many more bands that it's become watered down. That could be too, but I don't see the same. When I say impact, I'm talking about, as you said, innovation to me is bands that change things. They were game changers in the game. Like Guns N' Roses to me comes to mind as being an innovative band, a band that kind of had their own mold and they basically became bigger than pretty much every band at that time in their day. I don't see that today. So I think for that, I have to agree with them, Shadows. I don't see that. Even a band like Avenged Sevenfold, I'm not calling them impactful, but I actually happen to like Avenged Sevenfold, and I think a lot of their music actually, obviously when they first came up into the scene, they were, obviously mostly metalcore, whatever style you want to call it.
They were that metalcore
They've
sound.
grown musically and matured as a band. But I don't see too many bands today that are even on Avenged Sevenfold's level, and that's you're only talking 20 years ago when they came out. So I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I agree with this statement.
All right, I'll give you my thoughts on it. First of all, I think it's kind of ironic coming from M Shadows
I know you don't like them.
because you could easily make the argument that Avenged Sevenfold bit off more bands than any other band. Think about it. They're self-titled. Or was it what's the one with Hell to the King? Is that the self-titled record? Or is that the Hell? Is it called Hell to the King? I'm forgetting the discography. Yeah, hold on. But hold on. Gee
Hail
whiz,
to the King. The self-titled album was
self-titled came out before Nightmare, right? Yeah. Hail to the King. I was drawing a blank. So the Hail to the King album, dude. There's a song that sounds like something from Guns N' Roses' Illusion albums. There's a song that sounds like something from Metallica's Black album.
Something that sounds like Iron Maiden.
Yeah, there's a song that sounds like Iron Maiden. Like, so it almost seems like it was almost like a tribute album to all their favorite bands. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't come out and say that no other bands are innovative when people accused you of biting off bands. That's where I'm coming from on it, dude. I'm not necessarily disagreeing, although I'll offer an opinion. I'm simply saying, who are you, M Shadows, to accuse nobody of being innovative in your genre when you've been one of the most accused bands of biting off other bands? That's my first statement on the subject. My second statement on the subject, I don't know. It's tough. It's to the point. It's like sometimes you wonder, is there anything left to do? Now, obviously, some bands are going to come out and prove that there is, right? But until that happens, you have to question it. It's like sometimes it just feels like you've reached a dead end and there's nothing left to do.
You make a great point. Like, I actually also believe that you can look at that even in the entertainment part of things, of music. Yeah, as music, obviously music's an art. Musicians, it's a talent, but it's also a form of entertainment. We see that with, you don't have to look further than guys like, you called it, Kiss. They were the innovators of the entertainment part of music.
Alice Cooper.
Then you had Alice Cooper, and then obviously later in life, Marilyn Manson, who basically did everything and anything to piss people off and make people basically think he was the Antichrist in reality. Like,
and then you think even harder core than that, like punk rockers like Gigi Allen, who used to cut himself and poop on stage. I mean, every extreme has been done.
And I guess you make a good point there. So maybe it's like, what else is there to do? But I guess that's the part of being an innovator. Maybe there's something that, I don't know.
We haven't thought of it yet, but let's take it a step further. What is so innovative in the other genres that he's referring to? Because as far as I'm concerned, rap right now is garbage. You and I both know we like a lot of old school rap. We like NWA, Wu-Tang, Dre, Nas. But what is coming out in the rap genre now? It's all like auto-tuned mumble rap. It's incoherent. What's innovative about that? What's innovative about it? What's innovative in pop music right now? Pop music seems like every 10 years you get a new batch of teen pop girl singers, whether it's Katy Perry or 10 years before that, Britney Spears, or more currently, the girl that used to be on Disney Channel. I don't remember her freaking name. But hey, what's innovative about any of it? What is M Shadows talking about? Well, I'm not saying whether or not heavy metal is at its most innovative point right now, but he's saying in other genres is all the innovation. I'm looking for it. Tekashi 6ix9ine is innovative. What's innovative? Tattooing freaking all over your face like somebody drew with Sharpies on your face, like these rappers are doing now? Well, what's innovative, Mr. Shadows? Tell me.
I guess part of what he was, and maybe I didn't read it properly, the article, but it seems like he's saying that there's a lot more areas to kind of touch upon with music that is missed strictly in the rock and roll community by ignoring things like pop music and hip hop and R&B.
Well, no, here's the thing: if you're going to say it like that, like in other words, to not be narrow-minded, because that could bring us into a whole other point. I actually 100% agree, and I've said it before. I think that the heavy metal community is the most narrow-minded musical community. Like, that's why they say, oh, Metallica sold out after Injustice for All, or they might even say Metallica sold out after Master of Puppets. Anything after Master sucks, right? That's because heavy metal heads are so narrow-minded. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean the other genres are any more innovative. I'm saying, that's all I'm saying. I just think, again, it comes off wrong coming from this guy whose band has been accused of biting off bands. That's all I'm going to say. You know.
I
Anyway,
mean,
breaking news, Jay.
in fair,
Hold on. I know we're talking metal right now, but I saw Joe Embiid is going to play Game 3 for the Sixers.
well, that's freaking huge.
Yeah,
That just
breaking
came
news for
out.
your team, bro. There you go. I know you're pumped.
Yeah, you just broke it on the show. I love
Yep.
it.
Yep. Anyway, let's move on, dude. 44 years ago today, AC/DC released the legendary PowerAge album. Now, got me thinking. What's your favorite AC/DC record? Give me
Well,
your top 3 AC/DC records.
all right. Well, it's hard for me because my favorite AC/DC album may also be my top album of all time because whenever I kind of do these things where I have these lists, the battle that always comes to mind for me is Back in Black versus Appetite for Destruction. Like as far as what I think is one of the best albums of all time. So for me, obviously, if I'm going Mount Rushmore, creme de la creme, it's Back in Black.
I agree.
But with that being said, I can't disagree with people that say PowerAge. Like now, to me, my favorite other than Back in Black is probably Highway to Hell. But the more that I've listened to, because I'm not as much of an AC/DC guy as you've gotten me into them over the years, and I've learned to realize how much I was missing with AC/DC. The more I do listen to PowerAge, I actually think PowerAge is probably better than Highway to Hell. Like, so for me, yeah, it's right up there. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously it's a different singer. You know, you have
No, Bond's on Highway to Hell and Power.
no, I'm saying Back in Black
Yeah.
is Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson, yeah.
And you know, PowerAge is
Bond.
Bond. But I mean, dude, I gotta be honest with you. I love jamming PowerAge in my car. And you know, you kind of brought that up today. It's just got that vibe, man, that you just like. I don't know.
Dude,
Man.
what I like about old school AC/DC with Bond, I feel like every single song from that era, you could be in a bar and like if any song, whether it's from PowerAge, from fucking, Let There Be Rock, from Highway to any song comes on, like you're gonna be bouncing your head to it, like right.
Just
Girls
got that
got
vibe.
rhythm, girls got rhythm, or a 50-cent millionaire, rock and roll welfare. Every song, you're just like, it's got that.
I don't want to say
Like
it's
that
a
4/4
party
beat.
vibe, but it kind of is a party vibe. Like you said, at a bar, you can just see yourself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The old AC/DC, everything was that 4/4 beat, and it just had your toe tapping that backbeat boogie, But here's the thing: Highway to Hell was the first album with Mutt. Mutt did Highway to Hell, and then Def Leppard heard that record, and they called Mutt up, and the rest is history. That's how they got Mutt. But so don't get me wrong, Highway to Hell is an amazing record. But something about PowerAge, PowerAge was the record to me where AC/DC was maturing into being what they were going to become. And PowerAge is like that transitional record, but I think it's just better than Highway to Hell because it just captures that little bit more.
You know that I want to. Can I use a term? Raw.
What's that?
It's more raw.
Yeah, I just said it's the rawness.
Okay.
It's definitely more raw. And it's like, dude, some of the classics, Sin City, Give Me a Bullet, Rock and Roll Damnation, and Down Payment Blues, Gone Shooting. There's not a bad song on PowerAge. So 40th anniversary of PowerAge. If you have not listened to this record, check it out. I mean, I know a lot of diehard AC/DC fans actually say it's their favorite AC/DC record. So the casual fan probably doesn't recognize it. But if you are that casual fan that hasn't listened to PowerAge the way you should, it's time, fellas. 44th anniversary. Came out May 6th, 1978.
May 5th, actually.
May 5th. Oh, okay. It was yesterday. Whatever.
That's okay.
PowerAge. Check it out. Just wanted to drop a little, props on that record. And that's not our pick of the week. So let's just get into our picks of the week. What do you think, Jay?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Who's going first?
How about I go first?
Let's do it. Mix it up a little bit.
Let's switch it up.
Let's switch it up.
So, once again, I was gonna go with a Judas Priest record, but that would be just too much old hat because I've done that a lot in this show.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try something new, and my pick of the week comes from actually one of my favorite bands. I love this freaking band more and more every day. like I don't even know how much to explain how much I love them. But and that band is Hailstorm. They just put out a brand new album. It actually came out yesterday, May 5th, and it's called Back from the Dead. I had already heard a few tracks from the record. The first one being The Steeple. Dude, I got to be honest with you. There's 11 tracks on this record. There's zero filler. It is phenomenal, dude. It might be. I know it's sacrilege because Hailstorm has a ton of great records, but this might be their best. They might have topped their best record. And I'm telling you, dude, absolute supreme songwriting. Lizzie Hale obviously is always at her top form. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I think she's probably top 10 vocalist of all time. I know that's probably crazy to say. Her voice is, I don't know what it is about her voice, but whatever she does when she sings is magical. And, you know, there's a little bit of everything. I mean, there's a couple of, real heavy tracks on this record, but I wouldn't say it's their heaviest out, by far. I would say it's probably their most diverse. I mean, Back from the Dead, that's, the title track, that's pretty heavy. One of my favorite tracks is Wicked Ways, and I wanted to share it, but the way that it sounds, we're trying to figure out some, how to share this music and have it sound better. It doesn't sound right when we do it, so I'm not going to share the track. But the best song on the record, and I know it's easy to say a lot of times with the ballad that it's the best track on the record, but in this case, it actually is. And the song is called Terrible Things. I'm pulling up the lyrics here from this song. I don't know how to explain a song for me, but when I listen to like a ballad, it's obviously not always just the music. It's not always, the way that it's portrayed, but the actual lyrics. And there's a lot of you see a lot of mental health, addiction, struggle type lyrics in this album. Like, it's very dark, and you can tell it's coming from a place of, a personal space from the band. I don't know if it's, per Lizzie per se, but as the entire band, there's, what they put out on the music is basically coming from the heart, like stuff that they've dealt with. I'm trying to look it up. While I'm doing that, why don't you tell me your thought? I don't know if you had a chance to.
Yeah, I actually, the track you like, I'm loving it. What was that? Terrible Things, right?
Terrible Things.
Yeah, I was listening to it today. It is a tremendous track. The lyrics remind me. The lyrics remind me of like somebody that's like contemplating suicide. It's definitely very introspective. Here, I pulled them up.
Yeah, I got it. So,
we are human, we are violent, we learn our lessons, then defy them. We are heartless and immoral, we carry hatred like a Bible. And there's a hole in my life, there's a blackness inside that's eating me alive, leaving me to decide, do I live with this pain? As the rain starts to fall from my eyes, asking myself why, I see terrible things. I see a sickness in a world on its knees. I will take what you love like a thief. But in my dreams, I believe we're not these terrible things. We're not these terrible things. So when you get to the chorus, it's hopeful, right? Very dark in the verses. But when you get to the lyrics, I believe we're not these terrible things. It's a very beautiful song, very introspective. I agree. I like it a lot. Excellent track.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, I mean, obviously, I've only heard it a couple times now because it just came out yesterday. But I had already heard, as I said, I think they had released 2 tracks before the actual album. But every track on the record is great. If you're not a fan of Hailstorm, please, I highly recommend them. I know Aaron's a fan. They have a ton of great material. So that's my pick of the week. Hailstorm, Back from the Dead. Check it out.
Great pick. My pick is another brand new record. Actually came out today. It's an EP. It's by the Black Crowes, and it's only available on Amazon. It's an Amazon original. So it's only available on Amazon for streaming. It's called 1972. So it's the Black Crowes new EP released today, May 6, 2022. It's called 1972. What does the title mean? Again, it's a covers EP. All the tracks are from 1972. And if you listen to the Black Crowes, you definitely know that their love of old school soulful blues and rock of the 60s and 70s is what they're all about, that define their sound. The EP, it features tracks from the Rolling Stones, Rocks Off, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust stuff. It's got some T-Rex on it. It's got the Temptations. Papa was a Rolling Stone. It's awesome. I was listening to it today. Again, the Black Crowes, 1972. It's awesome, bro. If you're into dude, it definitely harkens back to their roots. It's got that, shake your moneymaker sound. It's all the stuff that they were influenced by. My personal favorite track is the Stones' Rocks Off from Exile on Main Street, which is the first track on the EP. So again, my pick of the week, the Black Crowes, 1972, available only on Amazon. Check it out. That's my pick of the week, Jay.
Awesome. I mean,
Thank you, brother.
I actually like the Black Crowes. I know it's not my style, but I thoroughly enjoy Black Crowes, especially if I want to just chill and relax. It's great. Obviously you talked about their influences, and I'm definitely be checking that out.
Awesome, brother. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. Before we let you go, we want to remind you, don't forget to check out our sponsor, La Terrain Watches. Once again, you're going to go to laterrain.com. That's www.la-touraine.com. You're going to use our promo code S&M. That's the letters S&M as in sports and metal. And you're going to save 10% off your purchase at checkout. So don't forget to check them out. Once again, we want to thank everybody for checking out the show. Make sure you visit our website, www.sportsandmetal.com.
Check out Aaron's blog.
Check out our blog. I have a new blog post I just put on there about the state of Major League Baseball, analytics, this and that. I'll let you read it. I won't get too much into it. It's a must read. Also, check out all our socials at Sports and Metal, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, your mother's ass. Check us out. Don't forget, tune in next week. Sports and Metal. Rock on.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.